We're now joined by Jeff Gordon, driver of the number 88 Nationwide Chevrolet. Jeff, you're back in the 88 this weekend. Talk about returning to Martinsville and defending your title as race winner.
Yeah, it's exciting to be back. I love this track, and obviously amazing memories from this race last year. And I guess there was a part of me that wasn't sure if I wanted to to come back and take away from that. But at the same time, I've always said if there's one track that I feel like I could get back in the car and feel comfortable and competitive, it's this track. And so for that, I'm happy that I'm here, and it's been a good day so far. I feel like the car has pretty good speed and the comfort's there, and just working on the balance and having fun.
All right, we'll go ahead and open it up to questions. We'll start up front with Tom and then go to Bob.
I'm close enough. There we go. Hey, Jeff, Tom Jensen, foxsports.com. Jimmy was in here earlier. He said he's going to lean on you more this weekend than before because your cars are being built in the same shop and you have more in common. How are you guys going to work together? And as good as you both are, is there upside for you guys to help each other?
Well, there's certainly upside. I mean, anytime you can, tap into your teammates and, look at their data and just have those conversations, it's beneficial. And I feel like we've always worked well together. But like you said, just a little bit about how the 5 and the 24, just the slight differences of some of the things they may do to build their cars versus the 48 and 88. I mean, they're built in the same chassis shop, and certain parts of the body are hung the same, but once they go into the shop, there's just some slight things that they may do a little bit different. I feel like my car feels very similar to a 24 car that I've driven in the past. Has good comfort, just good, good speed, and just doing a lot of the things that I like. So, I've been joking this year about when like at Dover, I finally get to drive a Jimmy Johnson, Chad Knaus car and setup, and so I was looking forward to that. Well, same thing, is the case here. But yeah, because of that, it allows us to really share more information, have more discussions, and obviously, we want him to win the championship, and this is a great track for him. So is Texas, so is Phoenix. So 3 great chances for them to get to Homestead, and we'll do everything we can to work with him and also with our other teammates to try to come out of here with really good finishes, and then I'm super focused on myself on what I can do. So I'm going to be tapping into those guys as well because I'd love to get these guys a great finish. If this is my last race.
All right, we'll go to Bob and then all the way to the back to Mark.
That kind of was my question. Should I write that this is probably your last race, possibly your last race, maybe, definitely?
Bob, your guess is as good as mine. I can promise you I had no intentions of this happening, but here I am. So never say never, so I know what to say. I really don't think that I'll be getting back in the Cup car again, but go ask Rick Hendrick. That really has more to do with him than anything else. I mean, I hope in the future that the drivers don't have a situation like what we have with Junior where they need somebody to fill in for them. But this little bit of experience has been kind of good for me, good for the organization, and we've had a little bit of fun with it as well. So if I had to do it, then certainly I would, but I don't anticipate it.
All right, we'll go to Mark and then back up front to Jeff.
Way back in the back row. Jeff, sort of alluding to what you were talking about here, possibly your last race, hopefully your last race, whatever. How do you look back on these 8 races that you have filled in with Dale Jr. when you basically thought at Homestead last year this is probably it, and not only was it just a race, but it turned out to be an 8-race swing?
Yeah, I mean, I go back to the original conversations with Rick and Doug Dukart and Marshall Carlson and talking about going to Indianapolis, and of course, there wasn't much hesitation for me when that occurred because I mean, I love Indianapolis, and track has been amazing. And honestly, Indianapolis didn't end well for me last year. So, I didn't hesitate one bit, but it was a tall challenge. When I got there, it was tough, really, really tough, and things didn't go as well, as any of us had hoped. So, I didn't plan on going to Pocono and some of the other tracks, but at the same time, I was sort of, I realized that just jumping back in it was I needed more laps. I needed more experience if I was going to give them a better result. So, I was kind of happy to do more. Sad about the situation, but if they needed me, I wanted to do a little bit more to get more comfortable with the team and the cars, and I wanted to drive the cars with less downforce this year and see what it was like. It does me a lot of good when I get back in the Fox booth, to kind of connect those dots, and was a great experience. So, each time I've been in the car, I feel like I've gotten better and better of giving, the feedback that they need. It was nice to get that top 10 at Dover. I'm hoping we get a little bit better, a little bit more here.
All right, we'll go to Jeff, Kenny, and then Barry.
Putting on your analyst hat for a minute, what do you think the chances are of Jimmy getting number 7 finally this year, and what do you think the chances are of Kyle Busch pulling off a repeat?
Well, I mean, we did a show, with Fox and Race Hub this week, and I had to go off of a prediction that I made before the season started, that I did with Larry McReynolds and Mike and DW, and that was, I basically wrote down Kyle Busch. I mean, I felt like coming off of last year, strong as JGR cars are, still, I just feel like, they're going to be really, really tough to beat at Homestead. But I also didn't anticipate the 48 being, as good as they've been since the chase started, and with this new format, I think his Achilles was that second round, and by him getting through the second round and being in this round, this is like an excellent opportunity for him. So I feel very confident they're going to go to Homestead. If you watch the show, how we narrowed it down to the 4 at Homestead, man, it's so tough to figure out if they can, compete against Harvick and maybe Kyle. I think those are two of the toughest competitors, that they're going to go up against at Homestead, and this is all predictions and things like that, and guesswork. Those guys are good, but boy, when you get to 48 in a final race for the championship, they do things that are extraordinary. So I think their chances are pretty good. I feel very confident they're going to be there in the thick of the battle.
All right, we'll go to Kenny and then Barry.
Kenny Bruce with NASCAR.com. Jeff, along the lines of the Jimmy question, as a car owner and a teammate of his for so long, what would it mean to you for him to win the 7th? And what do you think it would mean to the Hendrick organization for him to join Richard and Dale as the only 7-time champions?
Well, I mean, I've, firsthand, even when I was up against Dale and Rusty, I mean, Mark Martin was my teammate, so I got a chance to see firsthand just how good he was. But the other drivers that I've competed against, it was always, well, how good is their car? How good is their team? And you always had that question mark. Well, with Jimmy, I know, we're driving similar equipment. I get to see what that team does, every year, and what Jimmy's talents are. So because of that, I think he's the best that I've ever raced against, and possibly the best that there's ever been. Because, I mean, even days where I felt like I had a car that could compete with him, he did extraordinary things to get more out of it, and he's a pretty calm, cool guy, but boy, when you put that helmet on, you get him in the race car, he's just, becomes another person and takes it to another level. So, he doesn't have to win the 7th to prove that to me, but I also know that stats and numbers mean a lot out there in the world of comparisons, and so I think that would be great for him to have that, to show the rest of the world that he's one of the best, if not the best. Well, all championships are good. There's never been a bad one that I've known of. I mean, I think it would mean a lot to Rick, but I think it's really more personal to Jimmy.
All right, we'll go to Barry and then Jared and finish up with Dustin.
Barry Richmond, WAKG Piedmont Broadcasting Corporation. You touched on something I was going to ask you about, and that is a dual role as a driver and an analyst. Could you talk a little bit more about how it has helped you in the booth, and then vice versa, has being an analyst helped you in the car?
Well, it helped me being an analyst by getting out of the car, and being fresh out of the car from last year. It gives, just a much better perspective on what's happening, what the drivers are going through, trying to put yourself in their position and seeing things on the track that are happening and understanding what the aerodynamics are like, what the setups are like, what the grip's like. So knowing that they took some of the downforce out and a little bit of change in the tires, there still was a little piece of the puzzle missing. So to get in the car this year, will help connect those dots even more. But now they're going to take another chunk, for next year. So I think that it was good to just see the difference of how the cars drove last year versus how they drive this year, and give a lot of credit to these teams. I mean, what they've done, with less downforce, combination of Goodyear and the engineers and crew chiefs that build these race cars, I was pretty shocked that the cars really haven't lost anything.
Did you like that better?
What's that?
Less downforce?
I do. I mean, I like it. I think there's some tracks that it's really well balanced out. The tracks that have a little more fall off in the tires, I'd like to see there be a little bit more fall off in the tires than some of the other tracks, and some of the newer surfaces are harder to do that with. But I think it's just continuing to go in the step in the right direction by taking more and more downforce and grip and cleaning up the air around the cars to connect to the cars around them. But, I also know that, at Dover, I thought I was losing too much front downforce when I got close to cars. So there's still some things that need to be worked on there.
All right, we'll go to Jared and then finish up with Dustin.
Jared Turner, Anthem Media Group. Jeff, just knowing how much Dale Jr. means to the sport and his family's ties to Daytona, his success at Daytona, how big would it be? What would it mean to have him come back during Speed Weeks?
Well, I think that it's one track that he's shined at, like you mentioned, his family has. I don't know if that was ever really part of the plan. I think it was really more about what is going to help him heal faster and get to 100%. And I've seen a huge shift and change over the past month, since that decision was made. So I know one thing, he's going to be ready to go by Daytona. I'm excited for him. I'm excited for Hendrick, and I'm excited for the sport. I think the fans are going to really be overwhelmed or overwhelm him on their reception to having him back in the car. And I think it obviously is going to be a big deal that it's happening at Daytona.
All right, Dustin.
Dustin Long, NBC Sports. You were just mentioning a few moments ago about measuring Jimmy Johnson goes beyond the numbers. How do you measure Tony Stewart and with your experiences, and how do you look at him beyond the numbers?
Yeah, similarly, again, I didn't drive his race cars and for the teams that he drove for, so it's a little bit different comparison. But when I think of Tony, I just think of one of the fiercest, toughest competitors. It kind of reminds me of Earnhardt in a way where you just never count him out. You might see where the car's not handling the way that he wants it, or maybe they've fallen off, maybe they lost a lap, and next thing you know, you're battling with him for a win before the race is over. And that just speaks volumes to me about what kind of person and competitor Tony is. I wasn't that surprised he won at Sonoma this year. I mean, I know that a lot of people maybe didn't see that coming, but man, when you get that guy and you put a sort of a target out there, you give him a goal, nobody reaches harder for it and has more raw talent to be able to pull things off like that than Tony. I think he's had a lot of distractions over the years, and I think that when he's been able to be focused, he just zeroes in on something and he takes hold of it. And I've had some tremendous battles with him over the years where we butted heads, but throughout all that, the respect level that I had for him and continue to have for him has only grown. And then I'm fortunate that we've become much better friends over the years as well, to talk about a lot more than just driving race cars on the Cup level. And I love the guy, I really do. I mean, I think we're going to miss him a lot. I don't know if we've ever really had anybody like him come into this series, and so it's hard to replace somebody like that. And I think the fans are gonna miss it. I know I will as well.
I'm curious, one other thing is, I mean, there's been a lot of tremendous accomplishments in the sport. Your Southern 500 wins and championships, so Jimmy winning 5 in a row. But what you talked about with Tony, with how he had that target in 2011 and won half of the 10 chase races, is there a way to put that in perspective? Is that almost in one sense equal, or not, maybe not as equal as Jimmy winning 5? But where does that rank, or how is there a way to rank something like that?
I mean, I rank that up there about as high as it gets. I mean, I still think back to that 2011 closing 10 races, and just boggles my mind, that pretty much count himself out of it completely. He didn't even belong in the chase, and then goes and dominates, wins half the races, and has to win that final race in a tiebreaker and does it. I think if you could have put a camera on Carl Edwards' face in the closing laps of that race, I think that would have put it in perspective. Yeah.
All right, Jeff, thank you, and good luck
Thank
this
you.
weekend.